What in the blue was that? What what? Oh my God. So many things running through my head right now at that game, man. Because holy crap. The Dolphins didn't deserve to win that game. But somehow the Tennessee Titans gave you the game and the Dolphins said, "No, thank you." I don't even understand it. We were sitting, it was all gravy, baby. We were sitting here. The Miami Dolphins had this game cinched up. Not only did they have it cinched up, but they had the cover. The Miami Dolphins had this thing. They were up by 14 with 4 minutes left. And you're thinking to yourself, this Tennessee Titans team, no way. They had just urinated all over themselves. They handed the Miami Dolphins a football game. It's not like the Miami Dolphins won this football game. They were handed the football game by the Tennessee Titans. All you needed to do was stop a team 1 out of 2 times after they had just given you the game. You're up 2 scores. And they couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. What a disastrous performance by a team that had it all there for them. I mean, the Miami Dolphins had this 1 seed, best record in the AFC, keeping pace with the Baltimore Ravens. They had it all there for them. And the one thing you could always hang your hat on with this team every week, okay, the tough matchups are going to be tough, but the teams that stink, they'll be better prepared. They'll execute correctly. They'll get it to the finish line. And today, they did not look better prepared. Probably, and I don't really even think there's a close argument, the worst coach game I've ever seen Mike McDaniel put forth as a head coach. I mean, you know, and you had some things that were going against you for sure, but this was one of those weeks too where it's like, you know, the Dolphins getting cute with their injuries and playing, you know, maintenance program and all that. You're just like, you might have bit yourself in the ass a little bit too much with that. But this Mike McDaniel, to beat it into his head, how many times they had it you had to get snuffed out in that red zone before he decides to hand it off and give the ball to Raheem Mostert, the guy who is passing Ricky Williams in records as far as scoring touchdowns. The guy is a touchdown machine down there. And it has to get to the end of the game before he's like, that sounds like the right decision. Just crazy to me, man. Crazy. And a complete letdown. A complete letdown from a team that should be sitting here with, you know, they were gifted a 2-touchdown lead at home, prime time, less than 5 minutes left. And they acted like it on defense, like the game was over. And somehow Will Levis, who was throwing the ball, was throwing pitches over Derrick Henry, which is somehow possible, then all of a sudden is gashing him because Fangs, I don't know if he was hitting into the good tapioca or what the hell was going on with the old man, but they're playing soft. And you're like, all right, that's not ideal. And they just march down, get the touchdown, get the 2-point conversion. They're down 6. They're like, all right, well, let's go out here and let's have let's go and figure this thing out. And they had Tyreek Hill back to receive the kick. They're like, you know, that was obviously a big thing looming over the entire game was Tyreek Hill's health. Basically didn't happen for the first half. He comes out there sporadically in the second half, basically when things looked very bleak. Because up until the point where the Dolphins did have the lead, holy crap, they were not playing a good football game, especially offensively. I mean, just could not. They get down to the red zone and just whiz all over themselves. But and whether that was a turnover or bad calls, like you had immediately at the start of this game, like things just had like an ominous feeling early on because like dudes were dropping like flies. You know, you had Tyreek Hill got horse collar tackled, crunch, so he's basically out for the first half. Then you lose Connor Williams, you know, immediately, and he's done. So, you know, you already have been dealing with his injuries. You got to put Eichenberg back in at center, and whew, you want to talk about a vintage Eichenberg stinker today. Old Eichengooch, because this dude, he like snapped the football, gets like caught up in his cheeks, and the Dolphins muffa handoff once again in the red zone on the doorstep. Thankfully, the response to that after that happens is Zach Sealer, of all people, gets a pick six, and the Dolphins go up 7-0. You're like, all right, come on, what are we doing here? Nothing. This isn't going to be one of those games where anything happens. And just like, you know, it just was one of those games where like all of a sudden, you know, they just couldn't get anything going. Penalties were just a mother bleeper today. Just such a poorly executed game by the Dolphins. Like there was at one point today, the Dolphins, this was, I mean, one of the backbreaking plays. Bradley Chubb, who did his signature thing today of being always around the quarterback but never quite sacking him. The dude is like a roving vacuum sometimes that can never quite get the mess because it always just hits like one of the barstool legs. And he like literally had Will Levis in his grasp and doesn't get him. But the Dolphins get the stop. Jalen Ramsey makes the tackle. But Chubb was so mad about not making the tackle. Even though the Dolphins got the stop, he slams his helmet. And instead of the Dolphins getting the Titans to settle for 3, which they definitely would have, they get a fresh set of downs, and they end up scoring a touchdown with a Derrick Henry wildcat direct into the end zone. And just like, really? All right. This is what's going to go on with this game? This is what we're going to have? So that wasn't great. And then just Tua, you know, Tyreek in this first half, like just Tua wasn't able to get anything going as far as, you know, he's dealing with the heat. He was, you know, obviously very bothered with a lot of the pressure up the middle, funking things up. You know, had a lot of his receivers just like hung him out to dry with some really bad passes today. Tua did not. Tua, like outside of like the drive he had where he got Cheetah back miraculously for the second half, you know, Tua was not great today. He wasn't. And I know that he was dealing with a lot of heat and he was dealing with guys all around. Hell, Will Levis was too, dude. Will Levis was getting the absolute snot kicked out of him in this game. That's a rookie. I get it. You know, Tua was dealing with some pressure today. He was sacked 5 times. Will Levis just having to get throws off. I mean, he did, but like the Dolphins were bringing heat on him. But definitely like today was like the last Jenga block getting like pulled from the Miami Dolphins O-line today. And you found like the combination where you're like, oh, this, especially in pass protection, wasn't working. The run game, which I think everybody's just going to look to this and be like, why not more with how it was going, especially with Tyreek Hill out. And that's going to be the big mystery. I'm doing this. I'm not hearing what Mike McDaniel's saying. I'm sure he long-windedly is going to be like, hey, people like plays that work. Yeah, they do. But also, like, when they don't work and then when you get miracle plays for you and then immediately it does work, I don't know. Because here's the thing that's a killer with this game is that, look, we talk about this all the time. This happens in football. You'll have an opponent who shows up froggier. You don't quite have things. You have a couple of injuries that mess you up. what are you going to do? Can you show up? This happened with the Ravens yesterday. The Ravens were losing, get somehow to overtime with the Rams, and Rams make a couple of mistakes, shoot themselves in the foot, special teams touchdown, they walk home. Not the prettiest game, but they get to move on. And the Dolphins, we've been talking about this part of the schedule and how valuable it was because they had a ton of home games and they're taking on bad teams. It's a team that, the Tennessee Titans, they got some absolute. DeAndre Hopkins, dude is amazing. And Derrick Henry, these are you have the best wide receiver, best running back from 4 years ago. So they're not slouches, but they're not what they were. That's not Derrick. We saw this game with Derrick Henry. That's not the Derrick Henry who is flirting with MVP of the league, who's carrying them nearly to the Super Bowl. That's not that guy anymore. And to go through this, being a dogfight with them was frustrating enough. And, you get to halftime and you're trailing. You get to a point. There was one today where, it was just one of those annoying ones where and look, you'll have games like this where other things just don't, you'll have some bounces that don't go your way. The Dolphins had some luck and some misfortune, but then they had some bad luck on things too, where Will Levis found Spears, who, had this catch, but then Brandon Jones knocks it, beautiful play, knocks the fumble out, but it gets out. And then Mike McDaniel, who stinks at challenges. I mean, he's really bad at it. For some reason, just well, Brandon Jones did something awesome. It should be rewarded. Let's at least get an incomplete out of it. And he just throws the challenge for no reason. I didn't really understand that. But thankfully, that only ended in a field goal, that drive. And then the Dolphins, after the Dolphins trailed 13-10, this is actually when they looked like they had a little bit of life because Cheetah, Tua actually started linking up for Cheetah. This is the one drive where Tyreek Hill, seemed like I don't know if he was just toughing it out, but they went to him for two huge plays, which still wasn't it. This was, I think, the thing that just drove everybody nuts because Tua had two beautiful plays to Tyreek Hill, probably his two best throws of the game. And then, Tua tried to run it probably more than he ever had today, which, doesn't usually end in good stuff. But he slipped on 3rd and goal, and the Dolphins had to settle for a field goal. Then the Dolphins long snapper, what's his name? Blake Ferguson, he got called for unsportsmanlike conduct, and then they got another penalty on top of it. So they set the Titans up for great field position. Thankfully, it led to a punt. But just what is going on today? Where the punter is doing dumb stuff. What are we doing? What in the hell is going on here? It was wild. It was wild. And then the Dolphins, after they forced that punt, they go on this drive. They get stalled again. Tua gets sacked on 3rd down. It happened a ton. When these obvious passing downs, they were lighting his ass up. I mean, the Titans were licking their chops against this offensive line. It was terrible today. Then this Eric Garrer, who, I mean, if the Dolphins ended up winning this game, this dude would have gotten the game ball because he muffs a punt on the bounce, and Elijah Campbell recovered it. Dolphins set themselves up for a touchdown. Somehow, the next freaking play the Titans have on offense, Will Levis pitched it to Derrick Henry, and he fumbles it. Bradley Chubb gets the recovery. Dolphins football again. 3 plays later, easy motion touchdown. You think you're rolling home. This should be an easy win. And the Dolphins blew it. The Dolphins absolutely blew it because even after they go down 21-0, they go a couple rushes to Mostert, super obvious. Then Tua tried to rush it. He got 3 yards. It would have been a holding even if he did convert because Eichenberg was awful today. And then Will Levis gets the ball back. Dime to Hopkins. 36 yards. Okongwu got down inside the red zone. Spears then got one down to like the 6-yard line. And Derrick Henry, touchdown. That was it. Dolphins collapsed after having a 2-touchdown lead. They gave it right back. And the only thing that you had of hope in this one was the tight thighs of Durham Smythe, who kept a drive alive. Dolphins had no timeouts left. That was another thing. The Dolphins are awful at getting in and out of the huddle today. So they wasted a lot of their timeouts. Didn't have them for the last drive. Cost them. Bad game all around. Can't say really like you can't. When you have ineptitude on the coaching, you have poor execution on the offense, you have horrible protection on back. I mean, like outside of like Mostert, not many guys can hold their head and be like, I played great today. Not many guys. You know, it was a disaster all the way around. Humbling loss for the Dolphins. They're going to deserve, and they will get and deserve all the ridicule that will come their way from this game. And, you know, and now things get tougher because you had things set up for you in the right way with the remaining games. And you know that those last 3 games are going to be terrible as far as like that's a gauntlet. And you're probably going to slip up in one of them. That's just the odds of this thing. And now, you know, if you really do want to be that 1 seed and you want to get a bunch of home, you probably got to run the table for a loss like this. This was an awful loss. An awful loss, an embarrassing loss on prime time. Bad all the way around, man. Bad all the way around. This was the Dolphins got a big time humbler from this one, and it'll be interesting to see how they can bounce back from it.